Before we get into today's video, I just want to mention that halfway through the video, I come up with an idea, and you will see it. But what I want you guys to do as a community is imagine we have a Seltas and a Seltas queen. But the Seltas has kind of been rejected by the Seltas queen. It's been fought, maybe thrown about in a couple of Monster Hunter fights. What does that Seltas look like if it survived? If it wanted to come back for revenge and attack the Seltas queen? What kind of new morphs to its body has it had from the injuries? What does it look like? I want you guys in the art channel to make or draw a Seltas queen. Just a normal Seltas which has kind of survived time, right? That has survived battles with the queen, its countless rejections with mating, been thrown at hunters. What does that look like when it tries to take revenge on a Seltas queen? Probably something we'll never see, but I'm looking for a Seltas variant. You guys have the ideas. You guys are very creative. Pop it in the Discord, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them. If we get enough of them, we'll do a video on just a Seltas variant from you guys. But thank you. Enjoy the video. Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Zell here, and we are back again with another reaction video for you. Now, we are revisiting Unnatural History channel, which, by the way, if you are not yet subscribed, I highly recommend you do, for anything and everything around the history and kind of the lore behind games and movies, biggest villains, monsters, stuff like that, essentially. He's a real sick guy, and I mean the content is top notch. So top notch, we're going to be reacting to one of his videos today. Now you'll remember the last video we did on Unnatural History channel was Devil Joe, and I was having quite a hard time in Monster Hunter World trying to come to grips with the Ravenous Pickle. But there is a video on here which I've seen. Well, I haven't seen it, but it's caught my eye. It's caught my eye because when we think of Monster Hunter and we think of really good fucking designs and the variety of monsters, World didn't really perform in the way we would expect. It was mostly wyverns, reptilian kind of creatures. There was nothing around spiders or insects or anything like that. And obviously, For You was the game that brought the Seltas and the Seltas Queen. Monsters I would very much like to fight at some point, and monsters I hope do come back and return with vengeance. But what do I know about the Seltas and Seltas Queen? Nothing, really. Not much. Do you? Probably. You probably know a lot more than I do. But I find them extremely interesting. So I want to be educated on the fact. So, without further ado, let's get straight into this. This is what was the actual title of the fucking video? There we go. Oh, Jesus. Neoptrion? Neopatron. Neotron Ecology. Seltas and Seltas Queen in Monster Hunter by Unnatural History channel. Let's sit back, let's enjoy, let's get educated, shall we? Where is my full screen? Apparently that is full screen, but I have the... There we go.
The mighty Seltas Queen is the largest Neopteron in the series.
Neopteron,
Huge
there we go.
And heavily armoured, she's already a formidable adversary. But she also has an extra trick up her sleeve. The far smaller males of the species are completely bent to her will, devoting themselves to her as mates, soldiers, or even food. Let's unpack this complex relationship as well as other aspects of their behaviour and ecology.
Let's do it, I'm excited.
So obviously one of the most notable things Seltas and Queen do is the sexual cannibalism, which makes for a good springboard to leap into the...
Straight off the bat, sexual chemistry and sexual cannibalism. Not something I'm into. But hey, I'm sure there's a genre for it.
As a whole. Before we begin, it should be noted that there's no guarantee that much of the combo moves the two use are for mating purposes. Outside of the combat that is the core gameplay, it does seem like the most likely lore explanation for such things like the pheromonal attraction, as well as the queen eating her drones likely being made to invoke images of cannibalism, as it's well known in arthropods like spiders. So with that sorted, one thing that already puts Seltas in a bad position in this regard is the great sexual dimorphism between the two. As well as numerous morphological differences, the queen is well over triple the mass of her subordinate males, and this is one thing that can lead to such cannibalism. It's a lot easier to eat someone when they can't put up much of a fight, and such dimorphism is often a key predictor in spiders as to whether they exhibit sexual cannibalism too. But other than just snacking, what are the likely reasons for Seltas queens to be so huge relative to their mates? And the chief reason is likely fecundity, which is to say successful reproductive ability. Bigger females can make more and/or healthier and/or larger offspring. And it's believed to be a chief reason for greater female mass in animals where the female is the larger sex.
Yes.
And especially in invertebrates too. It's unknown quite how Seltas reproduce. And whilst very rare, case-selected in...
I'm sure there's somewhere on the internet where we could find a video around the Seltas reproduction. I'm sure there are some sick individuals that have made very complex, very detailed videos of this. I would be scared to see how many views those kind of videos have, honestly. Not something I'm going to be digging into, but I'm sure it's out there.
Invertebrates do exist. But no matter what the style, the huge size of Seltas queen likely allows them to create more offspring. Offspring sex is apparently dictated by the amount of resources available to the mother in Seltas too. And this also fits. It's suggested the larger female invertebrates are more sensitive to environmental changes, and the larger female offspring will also need a lot more time and resources to grow. This is also a factor of a lot of invertebrates having vastly larger females. The females take much more time on each developmental stage, known as an instar, and also have more instars than the smaller males. With this almost certainly being the case for Seltas too, the offspring sex selection would make sense. In poorer times, whipping up a batch of low-effort males to still achieve some fecundity and spread your genes, and then producing the more costly, slow-growing females when there are sufficient resources. This huge dimorphism is also what we'd probably expect to see in giant insects too. As invertebrate body sizes grow, so too does the extent of the dimorphism between the species. Seltas queens are very large invertebrates indeed, likely the largest neopterans to date, and likely greater in mass than the Temnoceran Rachnacodaki, so their pronounced size difference makes sense, as well as Rachna and her tiny pedomorphic males. We also see this in Vespoids too, with the queens being far larger than the standard drones. We don't know what's going on with Nursilla male and female-wise, and we've never seen a male Atalcar, but it's probable the males may also be smaller for them too. Another reason to...
That's true. What would a male Atalcar look like? Because the female Atalcar is pretty... She's something to behold. She's something to behold.
Eat your mate is simply good old-fashioned hunger. And after all, this behaviour is seen through the utilisation of the stamina mechanic. So simple hunger can be as good a reason as any. But there does have to be some pre-existing bedrock for the behaviour to occur. After all, it's not like in the couplings of Teostra and Lunastra, or Rathalos and Rathian, that one kills and eats the other when exhausted. For a female to decide to eat her partner follows a relatively simple analysis. Are you worth more as a mate, or as the energy I could get from eating you? Hence why a lot of the eating...
Could you imagine? Yeah, you're not worthy of a good time, but I'll eat you. I'll eat you so I can have... You will be the energy I need to go and find someone better. That is the ultimate... It's the ultimate rejection, surely. Is it even an honour? I doubt it. I doubt they really have a choice, bearing in mind how powerful the queen is, but... Christ.
Occurs post-mating when the male has already spent himself as a mate, and may as well be a post-coital snack. Whilst desert Seltas queens may often use their subordinates as projectile weapons against the hunter, it's possible this behaviour originated with them too. Whilst a lot of species that engage in sexual cannibalism will do so anyway, it can be a lot more common.
It would be interesting to see, like, the Seltas, like a Seltas variant that was kind of just a lot harder and a lot, I don't know, powerful, that would like attack the Seltas queen, or like has had enough of its shit, you know what I mean? Like just something that goes for the Seltas queen but is Seltas itself. I don't know how or if that would necessarily work, because obviously, as a Natural History channel saying, the Seltas queen is obviously there to, I assume, well, it's there to reproduce, right? So I guess a Seltas variant that would try to kill or eat the Seltas queen would be essentially committing an act of genocide on its own kind, I guess. Is that the right word I'm looking for? But it would be a cool concept, like a damaged or just feral Seltas which has been damaged by the Queen in the past and has sort of come back to try and fight it. That would be really cool. And what would that look like? That would be sick.
And in food-deprived females, as one would expect, with them and their mate versus eat choice. In some spiders, malnourished or food-deprived females will readily attack and eat their mates even before mating, with the extra nourishment often being important to breeding success. So with this info, in the arid desert areas where food may be comparatively thin on the ground, the desert queens may engage in cannibalism even more frequently than their more messic counterparts, due to lessened prey densities. Desert queens may also use their pheromones to summon males purely for food reasons, over any intention of mating too, or even actively forage for them. There are a few other things that can factor into this as well. Females of species that have already mated are also much more likely to eat males too, and some studies suggest males may have worthwhile proteins that can help egg or young development. So again, queens may lure in males with only one intention that doesn't bode well for their partner. But should a Seltas queen go out foraging and find the shops fresh out of boyfriends, it's worth asking what they may feed on otherwise. And for both desert and regular Seltas queens, the crabs may be a frequent snack here. With considerable overlap with hermitors, they may make up a significant chunk of Seltas queen diet with their considerable numbers. As said in both the Cephadrome and Espinas video, with their reliable annual production of huge numbers of young that provide prey at all sizes, hermitors may be a very ecologically important species in some areas, and especially deserts where they may support the schools of Cephalos too. Seltas queen is well equipped to hunt them. With smell and pheromones being important to the pair as a species, the queen may well be able to sniff out buried hermitors, and with either her tail or hooked claws, can drag them free from the sand or dig down after them. In short, no escape. Another less numerous prey is possibly shrouded Nursilla. Back in Nursilla's video, I suggested she may be trying to avoid a predator that tracks mainly via smell, and the corpse coat camouflage is an attempt to try and throw it off the scent. And Seltas queen is a good candidate. The queens are unlikely to hunt anything especially fast, being one of the slowest large monsters, and are likely to specialise in slower prey that try to hide as their first mode of defence. It's mentioned shrouded Nursilla will also make sand traps like antlines to catch prey in, but these will also shelter Nursilla from the heat of the day and hide her from predators. Again, desert Seltas queens are good at sensing things hidden beneath the sand and often seem to forage this way. Plus, the long grabbing tail of the queen also checkmates Nursilla's long scizhorns by keeping her at tail's length and bashing her on the ground to stun her. In short, Seltas queens do seem to be the likely candidate driving many of Nursilla's adaptations. Seltas queen isn't the only likely predator, nor the only stimuli, and there's likely a suite of factors that made Nursilla Nursilla, but the giant queens may give some partial explanation of some of Nursilla's more extravagant behaviours. Male Seltas are effectively the opposite, and are very swift, agile flyers with sharp raptorial forelimbs like those of mantids. Whilst male Seltas may well take other invertebrates like hornitors or vespoids,
they're great.
Their speed and flight likely also mean they can take fleshier, more common vertebrate prey too. Remobras and other wingdrake-like animals can be hawked on the wing and taken fairly easily, and they're not above taking ground-based prey as shown by their attacks on the hunter. Negative interactions with people are likely predatory in nature, and Seltas likely also take small animals like kilby, moss swine, and smaller raptorial bird wyverns too. Outside of protecting the face in combat, the huge forelimbs of the queens still have hooked ends that can be used to both climb and hook potential prey to pull it free from a substrate, but their most likely use is digging. Being huge and spade-like, Seltas queens are excellent excavators for both foraging and burying themselves to escape hot daytime temperatures, and may potentially bury eggs or young too. Another reason desert Seltas males may stay relatively close to the female is she may inadvertently assist in foraging. As the Seltas queen digs, either to escape the heat or find prey, She likely dislodges smaller animals resting in the sand that the Seltas can capture. We see this in Callapa crabs, more commonly known as the shamefaced crab, who seems to be one of Seltas Queen's inspirations, as they dig for mollusks, wrasse, and other fish, feed on whatever gets dislodged here.
Crabbo, I imagine you are enjoying this video. Lots of crabs. That's what I put out there.
Too. Hence, desert Seltas may often be within tail's reach of their queen for when she's out foraging for herself, disturbing small animals like delecs that could be potential prey. Sexual cannibalism can also occur for another reason too, which is aggressive spillover. This is loosely where a female of the species that has swift, aggressive behaviours with prey, and the bite first, ask questions later mindset is more likely to eat their potential mate. Seltas and queen are also well suited to this, as it's less harmful in species where males greatly outnumber the females, as Seltas do. The way the queen pulls new mates out of the sand gives some overlap between courtship and foraging behaviours, and this, combined with aggressive spillover, may be one attribute for the frequency of this behaviour. In a similar vein, the Seltas cannon manoeuvre may well be brought out from the stress of harassment from the hunter, and be something of an unnatural move. Technically, it's a waste of both a mate and food, and may well be born from the stress, harassment, and lengthy attacks of the hunter rather than something a queen would normally do with her subordinates.
That's an interesting take. So it may not even be part of its ecology, or its biology even. It's more the fact that it's stressed and is kind of on its, last legs. If I go down, then what happens to the rest of the Seltas, right? So to protect for the greater good, it starts throwing Seltas at you. That's quite cool. That is quite cool. Because, I never actually realised that. I guess it is a waste in a way. I guess if it was to kill you, it would then eat the Seltas that it has thrown and killed during the battle for energy to then go on to reproduce and find other mates. But yeah, seems like a risky... Is it risky though? Because I guess worst case scenario, it lives and then can gain that energy from the ones it's killed. Or it dies and, that's it, right? So either way, probably a good tactic, if you can call it that.
Overall, it's worth noting there can be multiple overlapping reasons for invertebrates to practice sexual cannibalism, and it can be a combination of several factors over purely one of them. Mate choice may also factor into things, and it's never too late to change your mind on the viability of a partner and eat them instead. Poor sexual performance can potentially be one such cause of cannibalism. In some spiders, it's believed they can evaluate sperm numbers in copulation, and if the male is giving insufficient readings, then he gets eaten. Know your worth, queen? Similarly, generally...
Legit. I can't agree more. Like, could you actually imagine if we did that? Like, you've just, at the time of your life, maybe not their life, and then they turn around and go, yeah, I mean, you were alright, but I'm gonna have to eat you now because you weren't pushing, champ. You weren't incredible. Sorry about that. So yeah, if I could eat you so that I could then go and do it with someone else, that would be the choice here. Rash. Very harsh.
Effective males that show up hopeful can be consumed too, but the queen can at least partially rely on the Seltas males to filter themselves as well. Seltas' signature feature is perhaps their impressive horn, a single spearhead-like point on the normal males and a two-pronged fork on the desert males. Part of the difference may well come from the environment and how it affects their queen here. If we assume Seltas joust with their horns, and the stronger, more well-armed male displaces the lesser individual, then Desert Seltas' fork may well be due to female scarcity. The lesser resources in the desert likely result in lesser numbers of females, and so females are guarded more intensely by the males. This could have caused the divergence, as it could be argued the larger fork is better suited to true tests of prolonged strength, with both males interlocking and wrestling and allowing a more definitive winner, but with lesser risk of random impalement. In some rhino beetles, horn morphology in the species can differ in a population depending on the amount of females too. Scarce females result in large horned males who intensely guard their feeding patches, whereas abundant females result in smaller horns due to the lessened importance of fighting. Normal Seltas may not be quite such jealous partners, and may be more willing to take the L and move on in the hopes of finding another more reasonably abundant female. Such a semi-nomadic life may be one reason why Seltas's horn isn't even larger. Bug armaments do vary. Rhinoceros beetle horn can get.
Is it bad that I've always wanted like a rhino beetle? And I think their lifespan's only about a year, and that includes like the larvae phase. But I've had mantises before, I've had scorpions before. I've always wanted a rhino beetle, but the lifespan kind of puts me off. They're pretty cool though, aren't they? Like, they're pretty fucking neat. And they're big fucking beetles. Like a rhino beetle? We might have to grab one. We might have to get one.
Unsurprisingly, larger horns do often win more fights and result in a more successful male, but this counts for little if you've starved or already gotten eaten. Only up until a point though too. Larger horns get structurally weaker, and so both types of Seltas we see may be in a sweet spot in terms of mobility, size and weight. Such weaponry still has mechanoreceptors, so engagements can be ended before something gets broken, as a Seltas with broken horns may as well be castrated. If the males don't do a good enough job themselves, the queens may filter them further based on their physical attractiveness. Sexual cannibalism can occur when males lack the proper morphological traits to be viewed as a good match. So even a victorious Seltas with insufficient horns could be eaten on arrival. Similarly, any that win a fight but break a horn in doing so likely then eagerly fly to their doom. Fighting isn't reserved for just the males though, and Seltas queens may use their long tails in combat with each other too. Earwigs will also use their forceps-like appendages in combat. And the larger males also tend to have larger forceps in a trait known as intraspecific allometry, that larger individuals can develop larger secondary sexual characteristics. Size remains
Earwigs
the most
are
important
absolute
trait
nightmare
in such
fuel, aren't they?
fights, with larger males winning
I used
contests
to be horrified
full
of
stop.
them when I was a
But
kid.
between smaller males, forceps size can make all the difference in combat. So with all else being equal, weaponry may close the gap in a contest between two Seltas queens. Desert Seltas queens especially have more pronounced forceps, and this may be for a double role. One, of more foraging in the deeper substrate of sand, and two, due to the more intense competition over lesser resources. The tail can also be successfully used against other enemies too. And any weapon that creates space between you and your attacker with less risk to yourself is a good one, and jabs can be aimed especially at soft eyes and undersides. The huge cella-like forelimbs seem to be used chiefly for protection when in combat, with the queen protecting their faces and mouthparts from damaging strikes delivered by other large opponents. Overall, a Seltas queen likely lives up to her title of heavy armor bug, and is a walking fortress near immune to predation. Another form of defense too is her notable stench, and Seltas queens can expel a foul-smelling vapor so severe it nauseates the hunter out of eating anything further. This isn't just an extra tool at her disposal should something breach her defenses, but may also be co-opted from the queen's occasional pheromone spreading. Whilst it's often mentioned as her controlling the Seltas, there's not really much need to do so here. In eusocial insects, it's debated whether this behaviourally changes workers not to breed or outright causes them to go sterile. But in the far less social Seltas, all the queen really needs to do is call them to her attention. She doesn't have workers she has to compete with.
I love it.
Only her drones she needs to summon. Upon summoning and being grabbed, the males are doused heavily with a releaser pheromone, which is to say one that causes rapid changes in behaviour. This seemingly causes the male to tightly grasp the top of the queen's carapace, and react with hostility to anything nearby. The complete synergy the two seem to have may just be the drone simply reacting to different stimuli. If the aggressor is far away, he flies the queen closer. If the aggressor is in striking distance, he uses the forelimbs to attack. If the queen charges, he lowers his horn. In ants, it's suggested that the pheromone doesn't cause the attack itself, but rather behaviourally primes the ants to act aggressively when the threat does occur. Dousing an aggressor with it may not just cause a vile smell, but also trigger nearby Seltas to attack. Even if Seltas aren't hugely powerful, a swarm of them constantly attacking would be a deterrent to any monster. For invertebrate monsters, it may also have another effect. When Drosophila, which is to say pretty asocial fruit flies, are exposed to honeybee queen mandibular pheromone, they become sexually attentive and try to locate it. It's unknown if this works on other buggy monsters too, and to what extent, but Seltas queens leaving a trail of their pheromones may well bring lunch to their doorstep. Such strong chemical defences fit with trends in entomology, with large and long-lived insects often being the ones to use it due to their greater permanence in the landscape, and possibly the need to cause lasting memory in potential predators of how bad they are to eat, even on an individual level, it being just one of a suite of factors that give the Seltas and their queen a lasting foothold in the land of the wyverns. So for thoughts on Seltas and queen, I think they're both excellent monsters. Seltas just generally wins the crown of best starter monster for me. An opening with a bug was pretty refreshing too. Early game for you in general has a pretty nice feeling of a lot of what you fight being giant, exaggerated versions of things you might readily encounter in the nearby countryside, like bugs, frogs, snakes, crabs and monkeys, before you level up and get to dragons and wyverns.
Monkeys. Seltas Queen versus a Rajang? Could we see it? Could we see it? I would like to see that. I wonder who would win. It's got to be the Rajang, I think. Because although it's heavily, like the Seltas Queen's heavily armoured, I feel like the smashing and the pure power, especially in like the phase 2 maybe, or the gold phase of Rajang, even in Rage, like let's not even get there, but it's gonna crack some shell. Let's be honest, it's gonna break some shell.
Seltas Queen 2 was already pretty decent, and one thing I always enjoyed was the real sense of weight her animations had, as well as the fact they were all bespoke for her. But obviously the addition of her combining with Seltas really was the cherry on the cake, and the main talking point. It keeps Seltas relevant in the later game, something no other starter monster has really achieved. It improves Seltas Queen's fight in a unique, fun and dynamic way, and really fleshes them both out as living creatures too. In short, the two just do everything right as monsters. With a good fight, design, ecology and gear, it's hard not to like them. On an individual level, Nursilla still remains my favourite buggy monster, but Seltas and Queen as a whole are worth more than the sum of their parts. The two also feel like they could have some really interesting turf wars with their combination mechanic too, so may we see them again as soon as possible in glorious updated graphics in the next mainline game. For the future in general,
100% agree.
more
We need
inverts
it.
are ripe
We
for the
need it.
picking for monster huntification. Grasshoppers, dung and rhino beetles, dragonflies, centipedes, a cool scorpion monster. One that's actually good, of course. The list is pretty endless on how they can be adapted and applied. Who knows what we may see in future. Thanks for watching, especially to Patron Phenomenon for the...
Amazing. Okay. Well, as I've obviously said, Unnatural History Channel is the OG when it comes to this type of video, and you definitely need to check them out if you haven't done so already. I'll leave a link to their channel in my description. I'll leave a link at the end of the video, at the beginning of the video. Like, I 100% agree, the Seltas need to come back. Like, they are just so different and such a breath of fresh air into Monster Hunter, and probably something that did make for you a more diverse and sort of variety filled game, which just the latest additions, maybe Rise has a bit more variety, sure, but it doesn't have as much as what 4U has. And I'd like to think that if we get a World 2 or the next generation of Monster Hunter game, will hopefully bring this back, and if it does, I think we will see a lot more insects as well. So it's going to be a very, very cool game. It's a very easy sell to the community as well, I think. Like, I would be in straight away if I just saw Seltas at the beginning of the trailer. Because you can't have the Seltas without the Seltas Queen. It's just can't happen. Be interesting if they took that approach, but I doubt it. Definitely, what I want you guys to do is, going back to my previous point, What happens if we saw a Seltas that just kind of had enough of the Seltas queen? What would it look like? What's the colouring? What's the look of it? Is it a bit more feral? Is it a bit more rabid? Is it hardened? Like, what does it look like? That is a job for you as a community. And I want to see your art pieces on the Discord. I'll also put a community post up and probably a little message at the beginning of this video. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. It's good to be back. I'm going to see you very, very soon. Appreciate you all, and thank you on Natural History Channel for once again an incredible video. See you all very, very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.